Welcome everyone to my show, Beth Bell Live. I'm so happy to have you here each week at 11 a.m. Pacific time. If you're watching with me live, thank you for tuning in. You can always put your comments, your questions in the comment section, and I'll put you in front of the queue to have them answered and bring through some insights. Now, if you're watching on replay, you can also engage with us in the comments, or you can go to bethbell.me/question and enter your question there. It's a little bit more private, but I do love the engagement here because a lot of times your question is something that so many other people are asking. So remember, anything that is on your mind is also deeply in your heart, especially when it comes to relationships. So that's what we're here to work through. Anything that feels maybe toxic or heartbreaking, betrayal, or just discord at work. So all questions are on the table. And I always love each week for you to be with me live. But if you have a pre-submitted question, that's fine too. We've got a whole lineup today. I'm excited to go through them. I thought what I would do first, though, is I'm actually on the road, as you might be able to tell. I don't have my same background. And one of the things I felt like sharing, which is in a way not about relationships, but it's about a relationship with yourself. And that is this really nasty, gnarly virus that's going around. And so I'm bringing it up for two reasons. One, because I may have to take a moment pause to sip my tea or blow my nose because it's still hanging on and it's still, working its magic to come out. But more importantly, why I wanted to bring this up is that what I have found is that we don't need to name the virus. Whatever it is, it seems to have a really interesting component to it. And that component is that it must have some impact. I don't know this from a scientific perspective. I'm just telling you from an intuitive perspective and from a personal experience and what I've witnessed with many other people out there that are catching this cold, is that it seems to have some kind of an impact on our serotonin, our dopamine, or maybe even the oxytocin levels. And what it's doing is it's putting us on our sofas, on our beds, and putting us out for just, everybody's different, for a day or maybe two. And during that time, what comes forward is all the juicy darkness and hopelessness and just these really negative feelings. And so we have a couple of ways we can look at it. One is we can just follow the spiral down, the rabbit hole that I always talk about, and just follow the thoughts and just feel crappier and crappier and crappier as the thoughts come. Or we can really just sit with whatever's coming and feel our way through. And most importantly, if there's tears associated with it, let the tears flow. Because I think what we're going to find is that as we just witness ourselves, and speaking of which, as we witness ourselves feel this emotion that feels like so out of body sometimes, like, oh, why am I going there in my head? It's a good opportunity to see like what's still inside that needs to come up. Let's look at it more as a cleanse and as a way that we can really just get into our own psyche and see like, hey, what is it that's still within me that I want to release and let go of for good? Now, the other thing I want to say is that there's some really incredible meditations that can really help raise your vibration. I know some of you may be saying, what do you mean raise your vibration? And there's a couple of examples that are coming to me to share. I'll tell you the meditation that might be helpful. There's many metaphors that are coming right now to share. If you're not feeling well and you're laying flat, that's fine. If you want to sit up, you can sit up and put your feet flat on the floor, or you can have your legs, in a yoga pose and just really anchor your sit bones in. One of the examples that I like to share about this is, imagine that you're a monkey. I know that sounds kind of weird, but you know how the monkey wraps his tail? Just really anchoring in and anchoring yourself to the earth, anchoring yourself to the core of the earth, and then sitting there and feeling that peace and that security that you have. And then what you want to do is take a light, just think of like a spotlight shining down, and feel it coming through the crown chakra, through your head and into your body. And maybe another way that comes to share is, imagine if you were a leaf and you're out on a tree and you're taking in all that sunlight and you're just taking the sunlight as nutrients. That's what you want to do in this meditation, is really just take that beam of light and allow your body to feel just completely immersed in light. and allow your vibration to raise based on the light, not based on your thoughts, not based on anything other than just being connected truly to source intelligence, and asking for that clearing and that cleansing, for any of those thought forms to just dissolve. I often also think Control Alt Delete. Thoughts will come and I'll be like, oh wow, that's really tough, and then feel the feel, and then let it go and just Control Alt Delete. It's providing us an opportunity to go deeper into our own subconscious minds and to release some of these thought forms. So if you haven't already had the virus, wonderful. If you have, or either way, just know that there are ways and techniques that you can leverage that can raise your vibration and release the virus from your system a lot faster, as opposed to just following all those negative thought lines and letting your vibration lower. So if you have any thoughts on that, I'd love to hear it in the comments too, because I know there's been a number of people that have just really been ill with this. And so I'm just encouraging an opportunity to feel into what the lesson may be for you. All right, I want to jump into questions today because we've got so many of them. But I think that one's appropriate because it's going to bring up all of the stuff that people ask about anyway. All right, so question number 1. I'm recently divorced and want to find a genuine gentleman to date. Do you think I'm ready? Will I be able to attract someone since it's only been 6 months since my divorce was final? Well, first of all, I really like that you're asking the question, because I think it's important that we do the inner work before we just move on into another relationship. And so there's 2 roads that are coming to share with you. One road is to say, yeah, why not get out there and start dating and start exploring and start having fun with the process. Be curious about who it is you're attracting, what types of dates you're going on, and redefine and fine tune what is that new partner going to look like for you, because chances are it's not going to be like the old partner, because that's probably a pattern that you actually want to break. So be in that really curious place of what's coming at you. Now, I don't know if you're up for online or not, but I think that there's some really great ways that you can have some of these exploratory experiences. And one of them is just telling some of your dear friends that, hey, I'm ready to go out. I want to be out there on a date. I want to have some masculine attention, and it doesn't have to be anything serious. I think that's really probably the most important part here, is to just have fun. So if you're going in with that intention to have fun, be curious, and redefine what it is that you're looking for in a partner, then I think you're absolutely ready. Now, you only know really if you're really truly ready. I feel that you are. But the second road is that, you can go at this, really wanting to find the partner. And that, I think, often takes more time, because if you're only out 6 months, and I know the chances are that you probably had a couple of years, if not longer, before the actual divorce, where you felt really separated from your spouse. And when that happens, you've done some of the work while still in the marriage, but it's still different, because when you actually have the finalization, there is something there that creates a different level of freedom for you to really explore yourself and explore what it was that you drew that relationship in for, and why it was that you chose to dissolve it. And that does take time. Now, I don't really like using the word time, because I think that, we can sometimes really work through things. I don't want to say quickly, but we can transmute through things. But it's really about being in your heart center and asking yourself the question, like where am I really at with wanting to open my heart and my soul, and really working on the patterns that you witnessed in your previous relationships, so that you can make sure that you've gone in there and really consciously uncoupled what the lessons were, that you were able to gain the pearls of wisdom from all of the good, the bad, the ugly that came through that relationship, because there is so many bits to it, right? There's the good stuff, and there's maybe the terrible stuff, or maybe just the neutral stuff where you're just like, yeah, we just weren't a match. And just identifying for yourself, like, what really matters. Because I have a feeling, and I've witnessed this many times, where people will be in relationships. They're like, I don't like dogs, or I don't want to walk dogs, or I don't like cats, or I don't like whatever. And they get out of that relationship, or I don't want to walk, I don't want to hike, I don't want to do this particular sport. They get out of that relationship, they meet someone new, and boom, all of a sudden they're all happy to go dog walking, or they're all happy to go skiing, or they're all happy to do the activity that they didn't want to do with their spouse. And so the fun part of this is allowing yourself to explore the newness of who you are in a relationship with yourself. And what are the things that I like to do, and exploring some new things. I remember, it's been many, many years now, but when I first left my husband, I remember I wanted to play tennis and I wanted to dance. I'd never done either, like, like ballroom dancing. And I didn't find a place to play tennis, but I did find a partner to go ballroom dancing with. And it was just wonderful because it brought masculine attention, but it wasn't any pressure for romance. And it was just something fun. And it also helped me to be in my feminine, and to, just be in this really flowing state. And so activities like that are really fun. So I think the main point that's coming through here for you is, let's not focus on 6 months or a year or whatever. Let's focus on, like, what is the status of your heart? Like, how healed do you feel you are? What happens when your ex texts you, calls you, or something reminds you of them? Where are you at with that? Are you in that neutral state? Like, yeah, okay, that was it. Or is there still something there tugging you? And that's really going to be the key for you to know when you're really, truly through that relationship, when you're ready to just open your heart to someone else, and to be in a really positive space. Because I think if we don't do that work in between relationships, then we just carry a lot of baggage from our old relationships into our new ones. And a lot of times our new ones implode because we haven't quite cut all the lines of the old ones. And then all this crazy stuff happens that's not meant to happen, and it's not intentional, but it just happens. And so the more we can be conscious about really closing these relationships, getting the lessons, and then allowing ourselves to explore the newness of what's coming, is the way to do it in a fun way, not in the way that probably in some ways can create more trauma and more drama in your life. Okay. All right. Am I getting a thumbs up there? Okay. Thank you. All right. Let's go on to the next question. Is it possible to fix a relationship after my spouse cheated on me? How can I ever trust him again? You may or may not be able to ever trust him again. I think what's coming is that this is something for you to focus on, you, not so much to focus on him. Yes, I'm completely with you that there was a very painful experience that happened. And I'm not saying that we want to discount that. I'm saying feel that and experience that, but then go to, why did I call this in? What is it? And I don't mean it from a blame. This is really important that you get this point, that it's not about blaming yourself, like, oh, I did something that made him go cheat. I don't mean it like that, but I do mean it in the way that, was there some place in our relationship where things went sideways, or when actions happened that helped create this situation? That's a really important question to ask yourself. Now, the other thing that's coming is that when this happens, there's a really big opportunity to see where your partner is in their own integrity and truth. And again, I'm not saying this, that you use this hardcore judgment lens on your partner, but that you really tune into them and really tune into what they have to say. Hopefully that they were able to talk to you about it. Now, that's the feeling I'm getting, is that they told you, you found out that you've had conversation around it, because you're wondering if you can work through it. So I'm working more on that energy line, that that partner is willing to have those conversations. And so for you to tune in to the words that they use, and how you feel when they express whatever it is, regret or something about how they communicate back to you, is going to be a real truth teller for you. But again, it's an interesting line, and I'm trying to be really descriptive of it because there's a place of judgment and there's a place of empathy and understanding. And so if you can do it from a place of empathy and understanding, I think you'll find that your partner's going to be more vulnerable. I think you guys can go back to the core juncture where this really went sideways, and really dig in there and say, are we willing to work on this together? Are we willing to work on the core wound and not be just blaming and shaming the person that cheated? Because chances are, dare I say, that if you have a discord in a relationship, you may have already thought of this as well. You just may not have actually acted on it. I'm not saying that that's an absolute, but I'm just saying that that often happens. And it's just the sting that the other person actually acted on it, and it really does hurt. But I think you can go back to that core spot. Now, with that said, if you're feeling like absolutely not, there's a pattern here, then that's a whole different situation. So if there's a pattern of cheating, then I think you're dealing with a different situation. So if you're on with me live or you're watching this on replay, I'd love to hear in the comments, or anyone else that wants to know about this, how to really handle that if your partner has a pattern of it. But I'm not feeling that for you. So if that is the case, please write me and I'll put it in here and we can talk more about patterns of cheating and how to handle that. Okay, let's jump on to the next question. And anyone watching live, jump in. Okay, when do you think is a fair time to be exclusive in a relationship? I've started dating someone and it's only been 2 weeks, but I'd like both of us to not date others. What are your thoughts on this? I think it's so individual, and I think that it's a great question because it's a question you should be asking the person you're dating in a fun way. Meaning it's not about like, I'm trying to trap you into this, or, like, I know you're not trying to do that, but that you don't want to be in that energy. It's not about neediness. It's about exploration. Because I think that as we awaken and as we go deeper into our own souls, there is an element of us that doesn't want to have multiple people involved in that fun exploration period. I know a friend of mine was telling me about a book that she was reading, and they were saying, you should be dating 3 people at the same time, 3 guys at the same time, because it creates this energy and it's competition. And, while that may be true, and I'm sure it does create some kind of an energy and some kind of a competition, I think when we're in a more awakened state, we're more conscious about what it is that we're looking for in our partners. I don't think we need to play any games. I don't think we need, if you have other partners and you want to date other people, you're just not there yet, which I know you are, but maybe they are. Maybe they want to date other people yet. And it would be nice to know, wouldn't it? So I think it brings up a conversation that will lead to some really juicy discussion that will help you a lot with the foundation of this relationship. So whether or not they say, yes, I want to be exclusive after 2 weeks, or they say, yeah, no, I'm still just exploring, do your best to not get bummed out about what their response is if it's that they don't want to be exclusive with you. I think it's healthy, and yet I also think there's like okay, so they're not feeling the right away, and sometimes that can be a sign. But I just don't think we need to read into that as a negative sign. It may be that person is really working on just boundaries. It may be that they're working on a lot of other things. That means, like, I don't want to stay in just this exclusive relationship right now. And it doesn't mean that it won't be in the future. But the conversation that you have is going to open up so much more, I think, than what you're actually thinking it's going to, because it's not just going to be about whether or not you're going to be exclusive. It's going to be a lot more about how you both see and view relationships, and also prioritizing relationships, because sometimes one person's priority can be that I want to be in a long-term committed relationship, and someone else's priority is that I just want to date people and have fun. My career is my number one, or travel's my number one. So until you really understand what someone's priorities are, which I think is super fair to ask on a first date, hey, right now for you, what is your number one priority? Are you looking for a partner, or are you looking to, move your career forward, or is your mission and purpose? Like, what is it that's the most important thing to you right now? It'll really help you understand like where they're at and where they're coming from, and give you a bit of a foundation as to why they might react or speak to you in certain ways as you navigate through the relationship. All right. Hopefully that's helpful. If you want more specific guidance, I'm always happy to support, and you can find lots of ways we can work together on bethbell.me. All right, let's go on to the next question here. My boyfriend and I live in different states. Can we really get to know each other, or are we just creating a fantasy? Well, I think honestly, in relationships, we're pretty much always creating a certain level of fantasy. And that's just because we're individual people and we're wanting that person to be our beloved in the way that we want them to be. And so there's a level of fantasy that's always happening, whether you're near or far. I do think that when you're in very different geographical locations, there can be a lot more fantasy involved, simply because you're not always witnessing each other's behaviors. So we always put our best foot forward. We always say, oh yeah, we're doing this, I'm doing that. And so it can be, yeah, you can make yourself look really good. But when you actually then get together in the same room and you spend, a couple of days together or a week together, then you start to see some of the real live behaviors of what time they really get up, or what time they really go to bed, or how much social media they're really on. And that stuff you can't really observe. And that can sometimes be misguided in a long-term relationship. Now, here's the thing that I think is so beautiful about long-term relationships, or long distance relationships, is that oftentimes what it creates is great communication, because you're not able to just get together and have the intimacy and the passion and the physical aspect of the relationship, which is so wonderful. But you're sort of, I don't like the word forced, but you are kind of forced into having more communication, talking about your day. And here's where I think it's really helpful if you can just remember, let me talk more about how my partner is feeling. Like, oh, that happened today. Well, how did that make you feel? Right? So that it's not just like, I did this, I did this, I did this, like, which is also nice to know, right? Like, oh, okay, that was your day. This is my day. But also getting into that feeling aspect of how did that make you feel? And learning a little bit more about how they process some of the things that happen throughout the day, because usually there's some ups and there's some downs, and you want to just get an idea of like, where are they at and how can I support them in their emotional journey on their day-to-day life. And I think if you start to do that when you're long distance and you're communicating with each other, then when you actually get together, then you can really have a strong foundation of communication, because you've already articulated a lot of things. You've already talked about a lot of things. And it just sets a different trajectory for you. So I think there's some really great benefits there. The other thing that's coming is, as awkward as sometimes this might feel, especially in the beginning, is you might say to them, what's the one thing that happened today that you wouldn't want me to know, or that you wouldn't want to tell anyone? And, whether they have something to tell or not is not really the point. It's just evoking that, like, let's be vulnerable. Like, what's the one thing that happened? This happened and I was really embarrassed, or this didn't get done at work, or I didn't meet that deadline. And I think what that also does is brings another level of communication vulnerability that your partner might not have seen in you, because if they weren't there, because, you can be cheery on the phone and you can be, yeah, it was a great day. Everything's great. Everything's great. And so sometimes just asking that harder question of like, and I'm saying it a little bit like tongue in cheek, like, it's not like you're trying to get like super serious on them, but you're just wanting to say like, hey, like, what is like the one thing you wouldn't want anyone to know that happened today? Or what's the one thought you had that you're like super embarrassed about? Right. So that you just kind of get into those heavier topics, because that's where you can really support each other, is when shit goes sideways, that you can have a conversation with your beloved and feel like whatever happened can be talked about and can be felt through together and not alone on the journey, because that's why you're in the relationship, is to be a support system and a team together to get through things. And so yeah, I think you're going to find that you're going to reduce that fantasy projection and get into the realness of the relationship, and also maximize that it's the communication part that you're building, so that when you do get together, whether it's, for a week long or a long weekend, or, time together, or you end up in the same town, or you live together, you've done so much of the hard work that we go through in relationships in the upfront. And it's just going to be a beautiful way to start the journey. So yeah. And laugh about the fantasies that we create, right? Laugh about them, because everyone does them. I think women probably even more so than men sometimes, but everyone does, because everyone has their own lens of which they're looking at the relationship in that other person. So it's a fun one. Have fun with it. All right, let's keep moving along. All right, you guys, I see there's a lot of people on live, but no one's asking questions. Let's jump into the next one. Don't be shy. My husband and I have been struggling with intimacy. I love him, but after 17 years of marriage, it's hard to not see him for all his weaknesses, which doesn't make him very attractive to me. Is it possible to get it back, and how? Well, it's always possible to get it back, I believe. I don't know if it's always in the plan. And that's where the discovery comes in. If it's in your soul's plan to rekindle something that's sort of feels like it's gone out, I would absolutely work on trying, because 17 years is a reasonable commitment. And that is a lot of life experience that you've shared, and a lot that you know about each other. And so, yes, I understand. You've seen all of his weaknesses, and now you're feeling like, I just can't deal with any more of that. I just want someone to be, I'm feeling that you're saying, I just want someone to be strong. I just want someone to be, X, Y, and Z. So I get all of that. And that's a fair thing to want. But if we've just flipped the lens and we say, okay, but what is their perspective about us, about ourselves, and shine the light back on what are the I don't like this word, but it's what's coming, the ugly aspects of myself. What are the things that my partner is so freaking tired of dealing with me on? What are the things that I'm not changing? What are the things that they're pointing out to me that's driving them crazy? And really going there first and trying to get deep within yourself as to what are the tweaks that I can make? Now, sometimes it's hard to go from zero to sexual intimacy if you haven't had it in a while, or you don't have it that often, and it's awkward when you do, or you just don't have the passion and the fire. So at least that's what I'm feeling here. So what I would recommend for that is that you forget about the sex, forget about the full-on intimacy just for a minute, and that you think about, what are some ways that I know will make my partner feel good? It could be that you're going to run a hot bath for them. It could be that you're going to sit next to them while they're sitting in the bath and have a conversation. It could be that you're going to give them a foot massage or a hand massage. It could be that you just think back to when you first were together. What were the things that you heard your partner say? Oh, I just love it when you do that. I just love it when you touch me that way. Or I just love it when you say these things to me. What were those things? And go back to those things first. Go back to those little Tinder flame igniters, and not try to get all the way to, we're getting naked in bed. Because sometimes there's just too many blocks, and there's too many things that have happened. So when you go back to just the basics of touch and listening and sharing, sometimes this stuff comes out then, and you start to your guard goes down, and you're able to just feel into their energy more, and feel not their energy in that you're going to go into any kind of pity party about what they're dealing with, but just into a really compassionate place of unconditional love for them. And when people feel unconditional love, even if it's not a lover, it's a friend or a parent, or when people feel that unconditional love, it just opens them to just a whole nother level and allows them to work through their own stuff a lot faster, and or breaks down the barriers of why they're not feeling great about themselves or why they're not interested in having something more with you. And sometimes it's the basics of just really tantric activities that's energy sharing that doesn't even have to be touch and kiss. I think that's helpful to have those added to it, but just seeing each other and just sitting with each other and looking into each other's eyes and going back to the basics of, the things that really do connect us as humans. And sometimes it's just getting that cup of tea or making them their coffee in the way that you know that they like it and you haven't done it for a while. It just says, hey, I love you, I see you, I want to support you. Maybe it's making the bed, maybe it's packing their lunch, unexpectedly, or maybe you've never packed their lunch and one day you do. Maybe put a little love note in there. It's these little things that I think can really make a huge difference. So I would invite you to just feel into, what are some of the basics that we can start with that can start to be that tinder. And maybe it's literally, it depends. Like right now it's winter when we're recording this live. Maybe it's that you just light a fire and you just sit together and you talk about things that you want to throw into the fire to ignite, or throw into the fire to burn and release and let go of. And you get into that vulnerable space that way. And it just feels a little bit more romantic without trying to make it like sexy romantic, if you know what I mean. All right. Hopefully that's helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Even if it's not your question, it's always nice to know, like, what do you think? Maybe you have some tips that are, really helping you and building and reigniting that relationship with a beloved that you still love and you still want to be with, but you just can't quite get through some of the history and the dossier that we've built sometimes against these people that we love the most. All right, let's go on to the next question. All right. Here, my eyesight, I gotta get my glasses back up. Do you have any healing practices for heartbreak? I feel like this has come up several times, so it'll be interesting to see what comes through today versus other days, because heartbreak is obviously a big emphasis for this channel, because I believe that, even though you might not be an active heartbreak, like when you think about romance and like, oh, me and my partner just broke up, like it might not be that, but it might be, a family toxicity or a friendship, discord that's really just weighing on you. And it's that mental chatter and that narrative that's making you not feel good. So I'm going to speak to it more from that perspective, not just from the romantic part of it. I think when we feel into our heart, which honestly today a lot of people aren't doing, and I don't mean that like as a blame or shame, I just mean it as we're so busy. We're so busy just trying to move through our day, and so many things are breaking our heart that it can feel overwhelming. And so I think where I'm headed with this, or what's coming through to share, is that we really want to allow ourselves to feel and release, feel and release, feel and release. And I'm saying it like this and touching my chest because it's like, it's through your heart. Because what we got trained to do, and I'm such a master at this myself, and I'm not saying it because I'm proud of it, is that, I process everything through my brain, which is not a bad thing. But when I process through my brain and I stay in my brain and I stay in my mind, that's where it's like the attachment to all the storylines really loops us in. So if we can just come back to our heart center and just really feel in here with whatever it is. And here's the trick, is it's the little things that we don't make into big things that break our heart. The little things, because when we get to the little things, we can and release much faster, much easier, with ease and grace. It's when we hold them in and we don't say things and we don't, then it comes out passive aggressive. It comes out not at all. It comes out, 5 years later, whatever it is. And it goes into this big mountain when it was just a tiny little bump in the beginning. And so I think the more we can really feel into how we feel about something, like, oh, and just say it, like, hey, that made me feel that way, or oh, that felt this way, or oh, that was odd, or oh, and we just express it, then we can just really be in that flow of not keeping it in. And so that would be my number one thing. I feel that this question came more from, I'm trying to get back to it, more from a place of like active heartbreak, but it feels really important to talk about how to work through the first few steps of the things that break our heart, because then we can help each and every one of our relationships through that depth of communication feel like we're feeling heard and seen, but that the other person is feeling heard and seen as well. And it takes work. I don't like the word work, but it does. It takes a little bit of effort. It takes intention. It takes caring. And there's a lot of times where we don't have it in us, and that's okay too. And we just say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling a discord, but I don't have it in me right now to dig deeper into this. Let's reloop on it when I'm in a little bit more of a neutral state. And then you can come back to it when it's time. Or both of you may have diffused it and not even need to really come back to it, or you come back to it in a way that's like so much less emotion and so much less intensity, if you will. Now, if you are in like super active heartbreak, there's many things that you can do. And the number one thing, if you haven't done it already, I feel like you have, but the number one thing is to cry it out. Cry it out as long and as hard as you want to and need to. I think, our lives get busy and we try to just suck it up and keep going. And the more we can really just sit in that heartbreak and feel it and experience it and witness it, the better. Here's the other trick, is that there comes a point where we do have to peel ourselves off the sofa, stop eating the ice cream or the chocolate or whatever it is that, makes you feel better, because that's not where we want to feel better, right? Because in the end, we also usually don't feel better because we're all, sugared up, and it's not the right approach. It's like really, again, coming back into that heart center and just really feeling into, what is it, this loss that I'm feeling? What are the elements to it that I needed to get? What are those juicy nuggets that are coming through for me about it? And heartbreak is always, depending upon where you're at in your spiritual ascension journey. There's different levels to this and probably different ways that you might understand this, but it is really to help you reconnect and strengthen your own connection to source intelligence. That is, every heartbreak is awakening you to more and more aspects about yourself and about how to feel big love within yourself, share big love with others without that attachment and without the idea that it's coming from them. It doesn't mean that other people, don't help us to feel our love. Of course, that's what they do. So I'm not discounting that, but it is shining that light within ourselves so brightly that we just know that we can always refill our cup, but we can also just mourn the loss of someone that we really love and get the lessons from it. If it's, romantic heartbreak, it might be heartbreak from the passing of a loved one as well. And so it's taking the time that we need, and then also just asking for the support and guidance from our, whatever it is that you believe in. If it's your guardian angels or your starseed family or whoever it is that you feel most, maybe it's your earth angels, your actual terrestrial angels here on earth, your friends and family that can really help support you and be there for you. So those are some tips that I think are going to help you really move through this in a really healthy way, and in a time frame that's not going to completely take you down for the longer period of time. Like, I think you need to be down for a certain amount of time, but know when to pick yourself back up, because you have so much support that's out there in the celestial and the terrestrial realms. And so it's about asking for it and just really nurturing yourself and feeling into your own heart and getting those juicy nuggets when the time is right to get the mind a little bit more into it and feel it through your heart. All right. Let's keep going. I think we've got one more question and then we're almost down to the wire here. Well, we've got two more. Okay. Do you have any healing practice? Oh, sorry, I just did that one. Is it okay to have doubts in a relationship? Does it mean we're doomed from the start? Actually, I think red flags, orange flags, pink flags, whatever you want to call them, they're all good. Again, they're from our perceptual lens, from our mind. And so when we immediately start kind of chalking up the red flags, it's just not, it's not really fair to the other person sometimes, because I think, and I'm going to say this from a couple of different ways, because I do think that there is a maturity when it comes to age that can be positive or negative in our experiences in relationships. So if you are a little bit more mature in your life stage, you have had so many experiences that it's so easy to come up with a lot of red flags. Now, I just think that we need to stop having so many red flags and just be curious about learning more. I'm guilty of this as well. When I meet people in general, I'll have like it's just our human nature to have a quick judgment. It's like it falls into our patterns, the culture, the this, the that, the other. And it's kind of like, oh, red flag. Now, where I would take that is there's a difference in this when we're saying like, oh, it's a characteristic red flag check versus, wow, I feel something in my body that doesn't feel good. Now, to me, those are very different things. So when it comes to the red flags, pink flags, orange flags, whatever kind of flags, I would just kind of laugh at yourself a little bit about those. Yeah, you can write them down. Yeah, you can note them, whatever. But the number one thing that comes through to say is curiosity. Have curiosity to understand more about that person for that attribute based on who they are, not based on who you think they might be. And then when it comes to that other side, which is like you actually are feeling a response, you know what I'm talking about. You've been in a room and you've had someone walk in and you just feel like, whoa, the energy changed. And they're just emanating something. And so if they're emanating something and it feels vile, it feels toxic or whatever, if it feels that way, it most likely is that way. And to me, that's maybe not so much. I mean, yes, it could be categorized as a red flag, but it's a showstopper. For me, where I am in my presence right now, this person is not the person that I want to spend more time with. So I think that's, because we're still talking in more of a relationship, dating, that kind of thing, right? We're not talking about meetings where you can't get out of being with someone that's part of a group, a team, that you're actually really honoring, like, I felt that. You don't have to figure it out, but you're like, I felt that, and I'm going to not move forward with someone or something because of that. No matter how glossy they may look, no matter how gorgeous they may be, no matter, the stories that they may tell, if you get that feeling, that gut feeling inside, it's something you really want to pay attention to and move away from that person, because there's only destruction that will most likely come of it. So that is where I'm just saying, yeah, okay, follow those hits. But when it comes to the red flags, I think just back off a little bit on that, especially if you're someone who's more experienced, maybe 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, where you've got like a lot under your belt. It's easy to call somebody else out for what you don't like about them, but it's not always necessary, because sometimes opposites attract, and things that we are judging someone else for are actually things that we're judging ourselves for, and we're just projecting it onto someone else. So I think you're going to find some juicy nuggets for yourself there too, if you want to really just get the insights for yourself as to why am I making these judgments about them and calling them red flags. All right. Okay, we've got one more question. I'm going to quick answer it here before the end. My husband wants to have sex more often than I do. How often is normal for couples? What are the downsides if I say no and he feels rejected? Well, I don't think that there's any particular number, and I'm not a proclaimed sex therapist per se, but I will say that connection and unity in a relationship is the most important thing. That's why we have relationships, is to feel the connection and to feel safe and to feel loved and to be able to express our love with someone else. And so I think that that's a nice thing to be able to do every day, is to express yourself and to feel unity and to feel safe and to feel supported and to feel that energetic exchange that really fills your cup. So for me, I think that every day is a great day. But for others that are dealing with other things and things are happening, then you have to really feel into like, where am I on this with my partner? And why aren't we there? Again, not from that judgmental place, but just from that, like, where do we need to dust off some of the things between us that we're not both feeling like we want to share in that unity? Have we ever achieved that unity is maybe a question to ask. Because if a couple has been together a short time or a long time, and they don't even know what that unity is or what that feels like, then that could be a really interesting thing to pose for curiosity. Now, for you specifically, though, what are the downsides if I say no and he feels rejected? Of course, he's going to feel rejected, because there's a physiological response that men and women have to procreate, of course, and so it feels like there might be a mix of this happening for you in your relationship. You'll have to ask your partner if this is true, but the feeling I'm getting is that he's very much in his second chakra and very much in that like real, like, dare I say, like orgasmic goal state in his orientation when it comes to sexual intimacy. And I think for women, typically, not always, but for women, we like to have the deeper soul sharing. And so it feels like for the two of you, there might be that discord where you're feeling a little bit more of like that, like animalistic part of it, procreation part of it, orgasmic goal part of it, when you need something else. And so that's also where I think you can come in and help him understand that, hey, there's something so much deeper here for me that I want, or that we've had and we're not having now. And unless I get that, the act of it is not something that I can just say, yeah, let's just go do it. And if you bring that to his awareness, I think you're going to find that he will be more receptive to wanting to pleasure you, because most men typically want to pleasure the woman. It's not that they want to only get what they want. And if you're in a relationship where they're actually doing that, then get out because it's not the right relationship, because we want to give and receive and have that be the same and in flow and in love and in unity. So speak with your spouse and your partner and really find out, like, what is it that you guys want to do together when it comes to this time together. And it's going to take your relationship to a whole nother level. So I would say yes more often instead of no, because you are going to find that eventually he's going to stop asking for it. And then you're going to be at a real stalemate. And that's like, once the fire is 100% out, that's where other things happen, where they start looking for other outlets, and your separation comes in harder and stronger because that unity bond isn't there anymore. So work towards that unity bond, and you'll find that things are going to blossom a lot more for you guys. And you're going to leverage that second chakra energy together. That is like that creative energy that makes life just fun and exciting and curious. And it's such a wonderful thing to experience with another. All right. We are down to the hour. Each week, I am so excited that you're here with me, whether it's live online or you're with me in my studio audience, or you've pre-submitted a question. I appreciate you being here. If you have another question and you are watching this on replay, you can go to bethbell.me/question. And you can also take the State of the Heart assessment on bethbell.me. Find out, is your heart blocked, broken, healing, or whole? And you'll get some tips and some tools to help you navigate that process. And if you want more support, you can always go to bethbell.me. There's lots of ways we can work together. There's one-on-one sessions, there's monthly spiritual advising, and there's also the Awaken Inner Wisdom membership community. So I look forward to seeing you. Oh, and there's also the Awakening and Healing Handbook, the Psychedelics Resource Guide, and the Herpes Handbook. So there's tons of resources over there at bethbell.me. I look forward to seeing you each week. And until next week, Sunday at 11:11 a.m. Pacific time, I'm wishing you much bliss and love on the journey. Namaste.